Hi, this is Professor Cummings. This is just one more addition to my series on Industry 4.0. I wanted to put this in as Industry 4.0 mostly because it's an interesting article. It kind of dovetails with a lot of what I've said in my last couple of videos in this playlist. And if you haven't seen it, you've seen the playlist, go ahead and check it up. I'll put up a link in the description box as well as a link to the article I'm going to talk about. So you can see what everything I've said up till now and how this article pretty much lays on top of that. Now, what I did just to kind of review everything, we go over the four different industrial revolutions, from the first of mechanization, then electricity and mass production, computer and automation, and then Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is just cyber physical systems. And you're seeing this play out today. And in this particular article, it goes over the next 10 years and how this is going to affect different people in the manufacturing industry. So let's go ahead and bring up this article and I'll go through it, give a little bit of a summary, and then kind of say what this means to the typical person going into a manufacturing based industry. So this is the article. It's titled "Millions of Manufacturing Jobs Go Unfilled." A jobs program in Louisville is filling a skills gap and putting Americans back to work. It's by Carol Heimowitz, March 16, 2017. So it's about 2 weeks old, and it's in Bloomberg BusinessWeek. So let's see, what are they saying here? So let's see. So you start with the article with James Michael Logsden, a Louisville auto mechanic, hadn't been in a classroom in 40 years when his company went out of business in 2015. But he was keen to learn something new. He enrolled in a free program for blue-collar workers at Kentuckiana Works, a regional job services program that offers education and training courses and connects students with prospective employers. In 5 weeks, he got a certified production technician training and was hired weeks later at Atlas Copco AB, the Swedish tool and equipment manufacturer. All right, I had a long interview, but it wasn't until I talked about the courses I'd taken and showed my grades that they wanted me, says Logsden, 59, who now repairs tools used by automakers and equipment manufacturers. So he changed his career, went to get his, a certification, and now is working for another employer, probably a more stable, I'm taking employer, who works within the city that he's in. And this is somebody who's 59, so just not that far from retirement. Now let's see. The article goes on. Donald Trump promises to bring factory jobs back to the United States from overseas, but many blue-collar workers are hurt more by a lack of skills than by globalization. All right, unskilled assembly line workers, or assembly line work has been replaced by so-called advanced manufacturing jobs that require some computer, information technology, or other technical knowledge. In Detroit, Louisville, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and other manufacturing hubs, many employers can't find workers with those skills. So the jobs are there. All right. So the jobs are there. That it's just a trouble filling those jobs with people with the appropriate work skills. And these skills are information technology, computer-based jobs, and various technical skills. So another quote here in the article: manufacturers are here and growing in numbers, but you can't just show up at a plant after high school and get hired any longer. You need some specialized training and certification, says Chauncey Lennon, head of workforce initiatives at J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, which helps fund Kentuckiana Works as part of a $250 million commitment to support training for manufacturing, healthcare, and other middle-income jobs. Kentuckiana Works other funders include the Louisville Redevelopment Authority, the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, and several foundations. So take away from that, this is a growing need for workers. There is a growing need, and there's a lot of companies that are willing to invest very heavily in this. $250 million has been committed by just J.P. Morgan Chase. And then, there's several other funders to this program, and they're for middle income jobs. Okay, to continue. Over the next decade, 3.4 million manufacturing jobs are expected to become available as baby boomers retire and economic growth spurs work opportunities. So a growing economy and attrition. According to 2015 study by the Manufacturing Institute, a Washington-based think tank, and Deloitte LLC, but a skills gap could result in 2 million of those jobs staying unfilled. So 3.4 million manufacturing jobs and 2 million of those jobs not being filled. Workers are most lacking in computing and technical skills, as well as basic math, problem solving, the study found. More than 80% of 450 U.S. executives surveyed, so 450 U.S. executives surveyed, said that the gap will affect their ability to meet customer demand. And 78% said it will make it more difficult for them to use new technologies and increase productivity. Now, again, going back to the series, Industry 4.0, that is one of the reasons that these companies go to the more advanced technology, is to try and improve their productivity. So as you can see, this skills gap is going to have a major impact on it. Well, and some could argue that this might drive more innovation. Nonetheless, these skills in the interim are not being filled and the jobs are not being met. Now, this next part is very interesting. So they're going into this next paragraph. If you're wrapping 300 Hershey chocolate kisses a minute and you need to know how to use a robot, and if you're making tiny instruments, you need to know how to use a robot. And if you're making tiny instruments for medical equipment, you need to understand mechatronics, says Fred Dedrick, President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, a nonprofit that works with 32 job training programs across the country. Some big companies have closed and left devastation, but it's inaccurate to say there aren't opportunities in manufacturing, he says. So, big companies like this close down. They don't have the skill base. So they either close, but more likely they up and move to where the skills are. So so again, this goes back to not having the workforce capable of keeping up with the technology. And again, the 300 Hershey Kisses, brings back our good friend, the robot Baxter, who can probably do 300 Hershey Kisses a minute. Okay, to ensure that its curriculum meets employers' needs, Kentuckiana Works, which has an annual budget of $700,000, enlisted local manufacturers, including Cardinal Aluminum, Ford Motor, and Kellogg. So, I don't know too many people who've heard of Cardinal Aluminum outside of Louisville, but Ford Motor and Kellogg are both big employers, to help design 2 training programs, the 5-week CPT course and a basic 2-week version. So they really want to get people up and going into this program and into employment as fast as possible. So you see that the training isn't necessarily a 4-year college degree, but nonetheless you do need some basic technical skills. So there are some basic skills that just need to be filled. So both programs are intensive and have trained people aged 18 to 60. Okay, 18 to 60. So that is a large range of people. So this isn't 18 to 34, and this isn't people just coming out of the job market, who are, on the verge of retirement. This is across the spectrum. Now, next sentence is really important. Only 56% of those who start one stick with it to the end. So let me bring out the cursor here. Only 56% of those who start one, stick with it to the end. So 56% of the people who go into this program actually complete it. But those who usually do find jobs quickly, because their skills are in demand. They've actually completed a program, they've improved their skill, and now they actually can get a job. Since 2014, when the training has launched, 973 graduates have been hired at partner companies at an average salary of about $13 an hour, and that's most likely gonna go up. I mean, I think that the new minimum wage is going to be $15 an hour, and for factory jobs usually outpace that. So these are going to be higher paying jobs. Cindy Reed, Deputy Director of Kentuckiana Works, says that most are entry-level production jobs. But if you've had the discipline to train and get credentials and then stick it out on a job and are willing to learn, you can move up quickly. So again, the technical skills are what drive this. Your ability to develop and improve your skills along the way is what's going to help you out as far as your career goes. That's the case at KCC companies. a metal fabricator with 350 employees that makes commercial roof products, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units. The company has hired 10 Kentuckiana Works graduates in the past year. The basic training they get sets them apart from an entry-level candidates. Once they're hired, we can expand their knowledge. So they want to help their employees, apparently. And not out of the goodness of their heart. Of course, they're getting more production, they're getting more product, and they're making, better profits. But nonetheless, the employee benefits by getting stronger skills and becoming more marketable. He attends, this is Mike, the recruiter. He attends at least one session of every course to meet trainees and talk about the company. COP also keeps in touch with instructors. Not everyone we've hired has worked out, he says, but our retention success rate with these trainees is higher than with other hires. So that's really just about the program. Logsdon, the former auto mechanic who also works at Atlas Copco, says he was as green as you can be. Green just meaning he had no experience in what he was doing now. When he started training after losing his job at the small family-run repair shop. Now, that's another small family-run repair shop versus where he's at now, which is a major, international-based company. He'd never worked on a computer, and he had to learn Windows and Excel quickly because the curriculum was online. And that's another new trend you're going to see, is that more and more of the training is online. It tends to be more flexible. People are able to get to classes a lot easier. And it's just, a lot more self-motivated. That's one of the, I guess you could call it a downside. People need to be self-motivated in order to complete these training programs. So classes ran from 8 to 5, and there were tests every Friday. I got more than a CPT. I got confidence, mentoring, and help writing resumes. All right. So, it's only a little bit more to this, but, you can see where this is going. People are expanding their skills. And a lot of these jobs require new skills. And without these skills, they're either going to go unfilled or just leave the country to where the skills are, or to the part of the country with the skills. And that people are going to different venues, different avenues in order to acquire those skills. And once they acquire those skills, they really, get a job that they can, anchor themselves into. So now let's go back and look at some a little summary and just some, a little summary and just my. All right, so let's summarize that article. What did we just read here? So this is just a little summary I want to put together. So jobs are getting lost overseas, either due to the aging workforce or just a lack of skills. People are retiring out. A lot of the baby boomers are retiring out of the system. And the skills are coming online. The advanced manufacturing, as they put it in the article, is causing people to not be able to compete for those jobs. So you're getting into the John Henry type of scenario, where you've got somebody who may have a certain set of skills that were totally relevant at some point in time, and now just due to the advance in the skill set or the advancing in technology, in John Henry's case, it was the steam drill. You're actually starting to displace workers based on that alone. So jobs are being lost because of the lack of skills, and the companies are going to where the skills have to be. So as manufacturing becomes more competitive, as the technology starts to advance, the skills required to find the job need to increase. You don't get away with having, as the article said, a high school diploma. You're going to need some sort of special training, some certification, some sort of advancement in your skill set. Now, this might mean a 4-year degree in STEM. This means you're going to be some sort of computer certification. But you're not going to get away with just simply having a high school education. The skill set is just getting way too advanced for these sort of manufacturing jobs. Now, there are new jobs, 3.4 million that are expected to be created over the next 10 years, but they're all STEM based. So they require some type of programming, some type of problem solving skills, and specialized training. And there are training programs available, and some of them are your traditional brick and mortar, some of them are online, but and it's actually being driven to a large degree by the people who are actually requiring the work. So the employers themselves and some, state and federal organizations, because they recognize that these skills are required. So there is help for people to actually get these jobs. There is some help. And this over here on the left is just our good buddy Baxter, from the rest of the series. So there you go, Baxter. There. So these jobs do exist, and are being developed more and more. And as they come online, they require people with more skills. So again, more high school education. But then again, you don't require 4 years necessarily. They do have programs where you can get you up to speed, within a few weeks, 5 weeks or 2-week programs, and then the company can take over there on your training. Now, the last point, the workers that need to compete for these jobs are opting for those training programs. Okay, so there are a lot of people going for those programs, like the mechanic who got displaced. He went into the program and came out and got himself a new job at a bigger, more stable company. One of the problems, however, is that only 56% of the participants actually complete the program. So that means that out of all the people that go in there, you look to your left and look to your right, those people one of those guys are not going to be there at the end. So the completion rate of these programs is not necessarily very good, and I don't know if it's a case of discipline, whether the programs are just not user friendly, but for whatever reason, whatever that happens to be, people are not necessarily completing the programs, even though it's clear that there's a need and there's a desire for them to have those positions. All right. So what does this mean? So what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? What does it mean to anyone who's concerned? Well, like I said in the previous slides, in 2013, more than 500,000 jobs went unfilled. Hence the skills gap. That's what the skills gap is. It's a bunch of jobs that were unfilled, and they're unfilled for the same reason. They didn't have the skills for people to fill them. They were more advanced than somebody who just had a high school diploma. And by 2027, 10 years, according to the article, it's expected to be 2 million jobs unfilled. 3.4 million jobs are going to get created over 10 years, and 2 million of them are going to go unfilled. Only 1.4 million of those jobs are going to be filled because people going into these programs are otherwise getting training. High demand jobs will involve highly technical skills. Math-based skills, understanding robotics, and basic problem solving. Remember the example in the article, the wrapping 300 Hershey Kisses a minute. You're going to need somebody like Baxter there. And Baxter's going to need somebody with the skills to know how to work with Baxter. So that is part of the reason they can't hire somebody for that particular job. So those are the jobs that you're going to need. You're going to need those types of technical skills. Again, this goes right back into Industry 4.0 and the rest of the series. You're not going to be able to complete these jobs without that training. The jobs of the future are going to belong to the people that take the initiative to build and develop those skills. So they've got several different outlets, several different mechanisms for you to complete these jobs or complete your training. And it's all up to you as to how to actually go about it. There's a lot of funding, millions of dollars in funding for people to be trained, millions of dollars in grant, companies that are actually hunting for people for these jobs, showing up at the training session, talking to them before they've completed their job. So the jobs are there. And you got a situation where only 56% of the people are completing the job or completing the training. There's going to be a big gap, at least projected as it is now. Now that's 10 years. A lot can happen in 10 years. Technology can advance. The economy can change. People can, start, developing or building their own businesses, or, who knows what can go on. So there's a lot of things that can happen between now and 2027. But the point being, if on the track that we're on now, we're looking at a large deficit of people with skills that can fill the jobs that are required in order to stay competitive. Okay, so this is Professor Cummings. Again, just adding one more to the series on Industry 4.0 and automation. If you can want to look at that series, be my guest. I'd enjoy to get your feedback on it. You can also follow me on Facebook under Infinity MFG. I got a Google Plus page, Infinity MFG. If this video was helpful to you, please share it, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the like button, whatever, the whole routine. Thanks for listening.